Please welcome Steve Ballmer, founder of USA Facts and former CEO of Microsoft, and Gina Chong, senior editor at Semafor.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, Gina. How we doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to all of you for sticking with us on a Friday afternoon. Steve, as they said in introducing you, most people know you as the former CEO of Microsoft, along with now the owner and chairman of the LA Clippers. But we're actually, by the way, good luck this weekend on the game. But we're actually not here to talk about sports or technology, at least maybe not in the way that people think. We're here to talk about education and how important that is for our future, for America's future. And people may be surprised to learn that you wrote a letter to the Education Secretary, Linda McMahon, earlier this month, talking about some of the cuts that they're looking at the department, including cuts that would eliminate data that you, as founder of USA Facts, back in 2017 that you founded, that tries to explain the US government by the numbers, including numbers provided by the Education Department, maybe going away. And I wanted to help explain to our audience here and those watching online why you chose to make that move. You said the future of US education is on the line. Why do you think that?
Well, let me give a couple contexts. Number one, USA Facts is a project I started when I retired from Microsoft. I had an interest in understanding where the government, not just federal, but also state and local governments, where do they raise their money, how much comes in taxes, from who, what does it get spent on? But of course, government's not a business. The issue then is, and also what kind of outcomes does government get for its money? In fact, we even, for the business people in the audience, we wrote a 10K for government in the United States. As we looked at outcomes and input specifically in the area of education, it's not hard to see that there are those who might believe that, for example, we have 33% roughly proficiency in math for kids in the 8th grade level. There's some people who probably say that's not good enough. At USA Facts, we don't try to be judgmental, but I think most people probably would say, whoa, we got an issue here. Our federal government spent about $268 billion on the Department of Education last year. We know that from the work we do. $56 billion of it was one-time money, theoretically one-time money left from the COVID funds. And if you look at the rest, it's 3+% of the total federal budget. And 60% almost of that is going directly into loans and scholarships for young people to go to college. And another almost 40% is spent on supplemental money that goes into public schools, affects about half the kids in the country, amounts to another $650 a kid. And those federal funds can be as high in some districts as 80% in a few districts in New Mexico, or as low as 21% throughout the state of New Hampshire. So we're spending all this money, even though it's only, 3% roughly of the total federal budget. But as we look at, is that money working for us in the right way? How do we measure outcomes as opposed to just the inputs in what we spend? There's a few core databases that we use to publish so people can make their own assessments of the quality of education in the country. And I wanted the secretary to know that whatever cuts, whatever reorganization, whatever ever happens with the Department of Education, we need to know, all of us as citizens need to know, is that federal government money working? And the government also pulls together a bunch of data from the states. That data for me, if I ran a state Department of Education, would be fundamental in comparing It's kind of like competitive comparison in any business. The federal government needs to pull that data together, in my opinion, to run appropriately. And the federal government runs tests that are standard in proficiency across the country so that there's a way to compare really in all these states. And I thought the secretary should know, needed to know, that this small overhead piece, 2% of the total budget, 2% of 4% of the federal spend is going into overhead in the Department of Education. And the education statistics, National Center for Education Statistics, is a small part of that. And particularly in this world where we're talking about efficiency, if we're talking to business people who may be in the audience, efficiency has to come with outcomes. In the world of business, profit. In the world of government, successful outcomes for, in this case, kids.
Well, so tell us though why you decided to go public about it as well, because we have a lot of Fortune 500 CEOs here. We're all talking about the uncertainties in the economy, but there's obviously some caution as well about speaking out and wanting to have your voice heard in this kind of environment. You decided to go public with it. Why did you make that decision?
Yeah, we're not complaining about anything. We are cautioning that in the move, part of efficiency is effectiveness. And all we're doing is cautioning as we read, as we hear stories. We thought that not only was input that would be helpful for the secretary to hear, but our mission is to educate the American public, that's how we think about it, about their government through numbers. And we thought it important to have citizens understand the kinds of numbers that are used today to help evaluate, to help understand the quality of education in our country. So it's part of our education effort as much as anything. And also we think an important thing for the secretary to keep in mind.
So talk about this in the context of sort of setting the foundation for our kids to prepare them for the future, for the workforce, for global competition, especially given your background as the former CEO of Microsoft. What are you seeing in trends in the workforce, obviously with AI and developments there, of what kids need and what kind of deficiencies you're seeing, like you're in the state of Washington, where Microsoft, Amazon, many of the big tech companies are based. From the data you're seeing, are they getting the education they need for the future?
There's two aspects to that. One is our kids in the basics of understanding numbers and words, if you will, are they coming out, well trained? What we've seen in the state of Washington, for example, is increases in graduation rates with no improvements in math or reading scores. Now, there's something that doesn't quite compute about that. Maybe graduation standards are down. I don't know. We don't try to, explain causation. Economists, sociologists can do that work. But there seems to be something that people could get alarmed about in that. Secondly, and now I'm kind of off my USA Facts view, and I'll just speak personally, I have a lot of concern that teachers will underutilize AI in the classroom for younger people. There's a lot of concern, will people really learn to write, to do math? I also have a concern, will kids really be ready to enter the workforce? And will the skills of today exactly match the skills of tomorrow? I don't think so. I think it's going to be an interesting, not necessarily an easy transition for society, but I'm a believer in technology. There have been plenty of technologies. People said, oh my God, we're going to go way backward. This is going to hurt, society and people's lives. I think there's going to be a tough transition, but I think over time, this creates more opportunity, more affluence, and more opportunity for people to live better lives.
Well, so going back to the National Center for Education Statistics and why you wrote this letter to Secretary McMahon, how are you thinking about AI in terms of data? Because, that is what, makes AI so effective. That's what is so informative about it. And it seems to me that if you had the right data and continue to have the right data, you could really then use that to pinpoint, which kids, as you say, are maybe graduating but shouldn't be, and being much more personalized in your education. What do you see the potential there?
Well, there's huge opportunity, from the, let's call it the micro level. How do you provide kids exactly what they need to continue to progress in their education? Even the short-term deliverables, let alone the long-term possibilities using AI, are immense. And I could almost say to any parent, why don't you write a few prompts? You can find them online and have, sort of input your kids' school homework, and then their answers, and then what are the additional practice problems or explanation that the kids need. I mean, that's not entirely simple to do right now, but that's the juncture where we are. And then you can go up to the more macro. What does the teacher need to know? And how does it help the teacher improve his or her job? What does it mean for policymakers? But if you start right there with the individual child, I think that's where the greatest leverage point comes. I tried this myself the other day. I'm back trying to learn French. Guess what? I got a great French curriculum out of Microsoft Copilot.
Oh, wow. So what level are you at now? Are you getting ready to go to Paris tomorrow?
I am doing what I would call remedial work from somebody who used to actually know a reasonable amount of French.
Yeah. Well, going back to the workforce of the future, I mean, even right now with the advent and the advances in generative AI, we're seeing a huge war for talent, for PhDs, for people who have certain skills to really take this forward. How do you see that in the context of our education system now? I mean, we're in a talent war with China, with India, with globally and regionally. Are our kids prepared for that kind of future as well?
I think you got three buckets of young people. Bucket number one is, do we have those PhDs, those super scientists, those super engineers who can bring us the modern advances in technology? Now, to get there, we need to continue to have those top-level computer science departments across the country at the university level. I'd say we need to get the best and brightest globally, because if we're really in a talent war, it's not just about the talent that we develop here. So I think there's a big immigration issue on that dimension. Second level of talent is what I would say you will need as people's jobs evolve, whether it's programming, where the work programmers used to do yesterday is changing. The use of AI, we're doing this even as we prepare USA Facts. We use AI to help us create that product faster, more efficiently, and better than we ever have before. And then there's just the everyday uses that every student would need to function in the world. You're just faster at getting things done. You don't want to be that person in the workforce who feels behind.
All right, well, we're almost out of time, Steve, but before I leave you, I have to ask you, how are you feeling about this weekend?
Well, we're up 2-1. We played a heck of a game last night, and we're playing a very great team with one of the best players in the world. But I have some confidence, I've got some excitement, and go Clips!
Well, Steve, next time we see you, I hope you're here in person to do those flips here for the audience. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks all.